How's it going, everybody? I'll intro us today. We're going to do a lunchtime happy hour Claude session um, and go through a few foundationals up to demoing some like more advanced, like integrated use cases of using Claude. I'm Chris McDermott and presenting along with Patrick Maheiser and Natalie Levy. I've been a professional software engineer for over a decade now, working from startups up through public companies, and have angel invested and advised as well. Was an early investor in AI in 2019 through Invisible Technologies and early adopter a number of years ago. And completely Claude pilled. So we're going to share how we're using it, and this is a collaborative learning session. And we all have different takes. So how about Natalie and Patrick can give like quick one sentence intro of each of you?
Great. Yeah, I'm Patrick McKaiser. I'm an AI implementation consultant. I was a software engineer for a really long time. Came back after a stint doing leadership consulting, and then opened up my own practice a few years ago. And since Claude Code came out, I've been basically working with it all the time to make my time way more efficient. And that's something that I've gotten really good at, and I'm excited to share with folks some of the tips and tricks that I've learned along the way, not just for software engineers, but for everybody.
And I'm Natalie Levy. I'm an engineer by background, but I've not been a software dev professionally. I'm actually an investor and run an investment group, but I've been having a blast building and shipping and just completely overhauled the operations for our investment group. So I'm really excited to be here and also just promote kind of equity and access for folks that want to build.
Cool. And then let's do quick popcorn of a few people in the room. Where are you calling in from, and what is something you hope to get out of it? And we'll just call like maybe three people. And anyone like unmute your mic and go for it. It's popcorn style.
Hey guys, Michael Rosowski calling in from Boulder, Colorado. What's the second part of it?
Is there anything you're particularly hoping to learn or check out?
Just more, more agentic use cases to build to what I've been building. So yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Nice.
Another popcorn. Jenny, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, hi, Jenni Ojala, from Lafayette. Um, Multiple use cases around marketing, but I'm especially interested in if Claude is able to interact with Facebook.
Good question. I will look that up. And good to see you.
Yeah, I can go.
Go for it.
Jay, I'm in Portland, Oregon. I actually just started a new job and they are all in with Claude. So I saw the little invite for this and thought it might be good to tune in to see if I'm missing anything or, find out some tips and tricks to using it.
Cool. All right, we've got a smattering of folks here, and then I'd say because it's tight lunchtime, happy hour, we want to be effective. Let's start talking and presenting.
Sounds great. I think that's me. So
Sorry,
I,
real
yeah,
quick to transition because
go for
some
it.
folks I think already like played back or this is their second time maybe joining us. We're going to start with just an overview, like a landscape fundamental concept, because we want to make sure we're meeting you where you are. We're nerding out, the three of us, and I'm sure a lot of you are too, but we just want to make sure we can meet you with the language. Don't be scared. We might say something you don't understand. We probably will. Take notes, but we're going to just define some things before we jump into demos later.
Yeah, thanks, Nat. It's a great transition. So, folks, I just wanted to go really briefly over the AI tool landscape and what we're going to be talking about specifically. This is by no means comprehensive. For us, since we're talking specifically about Claude and really Claude Code is what we're going to be demoing a lot with you, I wanted to get some definitions here. So, Claude is sort of similar to, it's the model itself. It's the thing that you're going to be chatting back and forth with. If you just open up Claude and start talking like you did with ChatGPT, maybe back in the day, or Gemini for those of you who are using other models, that's just like your chatbot. Then we have Claude Cowork, which is a little more advanced. So this is an agentic system. I like to say it's an agentic system with training wheels that's designed for non-coders. And then we have Claude Code, which is something that you can get to do almost anything on your computer, right? So it can code, it can create agents that do things for you, that go around the internet and commit actions on your behalf. So most of what you can do as a user, Claude Code can do. With a lot, there are some limitations around that, but for the most part, it's more fully agentic and also a little bit more dangerous if you don't know what you're doing.
And if I could jump in really quick, one
Yeah,
thing, we sent some pre-work, so you can always dig that up and we'll reference it again in our
please.
follow-up email. But it's basically instructing you a bit and guiding how to access these things because we realize it may be very new for you. And I just want to point out, not everybody will have access, for example, to Claude Cowork, depending on maybe what you're running. So we recognize that and we want to make sure, again, that you're not stopped or stuck. So there you go.
Good point, Nat. Thanks. And I think we're over to you
Yeah, great.
for this next
So
segment too.
So basically, we want to chat a little bit about, well, what is prompting? What is chat, right? I'm sure everyone here is probably using chat based on the rooms and the hands that we've seen, as we've kind of talked about this kind of stuff. And so chat is probably something you're already interacting with, maybe on a daily basis. It's any message, you're basically dropping in into whether you're using Claude or another tool. Now, it's technically a prompt when you chat. So prompting, of course, sounds more technical. And truly, what prompting is, it's when you structure an ad more context. So you want quality, repeatability. You basically are controlling, let's say, or defining more of the output of what you're going to get. Things like context, role, maybe there's a specific task, constraints. You want the format to look a certain way or a brand to appear. So the idea of chat versus prompting is basically, you could just say, hey, draft me a LinkedIn post. Or you could say, draft me a LinkedIn post and I want this structure. This is my audience. This is my brand voice. This is the intention. This is the CTA I want. So one is more kind of chat, one's more prompt. So you're already prompting. And of course, you can step it up further as you learn and gain and build on these skills.
Thanks, Nat. That's awesome. And I'll touch briefly on here. I'll touch briefly on context as well, because that's sort of one of the next pieces that's important, and Nat pointed this out. So context, when we talk about this, it's actually fairly intuitive. It's really everything the model knows about and can see. But it's really, really critical for folks to understand that a lot of when they get bad responses, it's actually a context problem. So who here has been confidently lied to by an LLM at some point? Great. Okay. Has anybody done this thing where maybe you figured that out and you were like, that doesn't sound quite right. Can you look that up? And it's gotten a better response. Okay. If you haven't done that, that's a good little technique for you to start using. It's called grounding. And what you're really doing is you're introducing new context into the model so that it actually is able to act on the correct information. And I think it's really important to know that giving Claude or any LLM good context is a core skill, not just any context, because if the context is old, it can create all kinds of friction and problems for you. I'm going to demonstrate this later in my demo, but the one piece that I will also add is that LLMs also have a finite amount of context that they can hold at any point. Just like you have a finite amount of memory, LLMs also have a finite ability to remember things inside of one session. So it's important that you give it just the most important information for what you're trying to achieve. Great.
Or splitting up your tasks into separate chats or sessions. That'll make it more effective.
Exactly. And we'll go a little bit more into detail in my segment that's coming up as well. Great. And then is this your slide, Chris?
Actually, Chris,
Natalie.
MCP, I think we were going to do the MCP API first, but I'm happy to do skills.
Great.
Anyway.
Okay, let's dive in there.
We'll dive into skills. So basically, want to define some of these topics that are going to come up for you. What is a skill? A skill is basically a frozen prompt. And by the way, I worked with Claude to, define some of this stuff for y'all because I wanted to make sure the language would translate well. But basically think of a prompt with context that your team is going to run and basically just repeat need this thing. If you build something and then you need to keep using it and it's, going to get better over time and maybe it's something you want to run that's automated, that's a great time to be thinking about, using a skill. There are brand voice guidelines or standards, or maybe there's context that you're like, hey, look at what's happening here in terms of resources. And you don't want to have to keep pointing, hey, Claude, go look at this, go look at that. And so building these skills and using these skills is a great way to be able to leverage, again, context and let's call it rules, so that what you're doing, you can do in an efficient, way. I have a lot on this slide. We're just going to kind of run through it. And it's okay, again, if these are new concepts. Cron, automation, time-based triggers, when to use them, right? You basically are setting something up to say, I want you to run, right? Claude, I want you to run on a schedule, and I want you to basically do something. That something could be run the skill. It could be do a database backup. It's up to you. You're defining this. You can basically, build what you need. And so I'm going to give examples that kind of tie these concepts together later. But an example of this is a time-based trigger that says, all right, on Monday, I want you to run this. I want to see this output. I want it to be disseminated to my investor group. That's an example. Human in the loop, HITL, which is an acronym, and I shouldn't make the joke, but being Jewish, it scared me starting to say that word earlier because literally I didn't know the acronym. But basically, it's this concept of there is high priority. There's really, important things that you need to make sure are there from a quality metric standpoint. You need to make sure that this stuff makes sense. Discernment. We all probably laugh at some of the things that come back out of AI sometimes. At the end of the day, quality matters, probably matters even more in this world of garbage and junk that AI is just writing. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean sometimes you need that quality or that person to say, let's make this better before we can fully automate, or maybe we can never fully automate. So maybe we need a human in the loop or a person to kind of QA or say, is this our voice? Do we need to change the tone of this message? So human in the loop, again, critical items, critical projects, you don't want to just have it running autonomously unless you really build the trust and you believe that that's something that you don't need a human for. And I think the final thing I just want to quickly touch on is the nature of agentic, right? What does it mean to be agentic or autonomous? So no longer maybe is the human in the loop here, but it's, hey, AI, you're going to decide what to do next. You're going to determine maybe the order when it's done. You're maybe going to optimize this thing. And it's a loop that maybe you're in and I'm not as a human, kind of stopping that and saying, wait, this is the decision. So again, some of these concepts may be really new. When we dive into those demos that are upcoming, we're going to be able to build on some of this. And then, of course, you can strengthen your understanding.
Thanks, Nat. Chris, are your slides on this one or a different one?
I'll do it off my machine.
If you want to start sharing.
Yeah, so I'll share.
Chris is going to jump in on MCPs and APIs.
Yeah, and before that, I'll do just a quick share on how to access Claude and where to access it. So again, this is for all levels. If you're new, you can go to claude.ai and find your chat interface, set up a plan if you don't have one, and go from there. And you can even say, if you're new to it after this call, you can say, hey, I just went on this call. How do I use you? What should I explore? You can even do that in this prompt itself. That's the web UI. I recommend if you want to use Cowork and even code on your desktop, then you would download the desktop. I shared that in the pre-work. I don't have it here, but
actually, Chris, on the bottom left of your screen, there's that hover button where you can right there show download on the right. See the arrow down to the right? So that's a way to access it too.
Okay, yeah, this is another way. The way to get it on your desktop would be here. There are a bunch of other integrations you can do, but just focus on the desktop part. And so I would say in terms of complexity or advanced tool usage, it would be using the chat in the web, like that's a good entry point, and then downloading the desktop app. And then if you want to try out Claude Code and you feel comfortable with that in the terminal, then you would go to this. I can share all three of these links in a message after the call. This is for downloading Claude Code, and then you'd use it in a terminal on your machine. This is the native terminal that comes with Mac, or you can use something like iTerm or Ghosty, like I saw Patrick is using, which are have better interfaces for terminal usage. So that would sort of be the progression that I would look at. And then in terms of once you're set up with these tools, then okay, how do you like add abilities to them? And things that I'll touch on, a few simple concepts to keep in mind are giving Claude via either the desktop or Claude Code access to the tools that you're using. And that's generally through an MCP server or a connector. An MCP is a wrapper around an API. And an API is a structured way to interact with a server or a tool online. And MCP is a structured wrapper around that AI tools can use and consume. It's a standard protocol that the industry is fine-tuning and developing around. Beyond MCP, you have skills which can reference making certain tool calls, or plugins, which are a group of skills and a group of MCPs. And then tool calls are certain defined methods that can be used by the API. And you can even see those being used in chats in sort of the background process.
And
And when you,
Chris, oh,
yep,
sorry.
hey, I
I
was
just
just going to
I
go
want to
on.
dumb down the language just a little bit because I think it's getting a little complex. When you talk about MCPs and APIs, like talk to me. That's how apps basically are speaking to one another, like just to make it very clear.
Yes, it is like the way to, it's in the best way to put it is it's an integration. So if
Great.
you use Jira or you use Slack or you use what are some other things that would most likely have an integration? Jira, Slack, etc. When you want to integrate other tools like GitHub or email or Google Drive and you like look at a marketplace or optional integrations, the parallel for that in the AI world is looking at connectors and MCPs. And it's an integration for your AI tooling to look at and use those other tools. And where you can find that in both, I think the UI should be unified across the web and the desktop. Yeah, it does look the same in both. You go to customize, connect your apps, and just look for the things that you're using, and you can add those. Um, yeah, you can add those to either the web or desktop. They should be unified. So when you add it to one, it should be added to the other. And that's, I would encourage you to explore adding these tools, and then you can like sort of get more leverage in your workflows. And yeah, and then you would see tool calls. Down the road, if you want to make your own MCP, that would be like an advanced use case, but you can see what's already off the shelf, either provided by the large companies themselves or like or a professional company, software company that's made them. So yeah, that's
Awesome.
MCPs and connectors.
Great.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Do you want to cover really briefly Claude Code and what that looks like a little bit more specifically in the terminal, or you want me to dive into that?
I'll do that in my demo. I'm going to
Great.
show Claude Code in my demo.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll probably show some of that as well. Um, awesome. So I'm going to talk to you all about context. Let me go ahead and share my screen.
Yeah,
And
so we'll transition to Patrick. So now we'll go into three demos. Patrick, demo in context, myself, demoing like usage of connectors in web and then Claude Code, and then Natalie will bring it all together in sort of like a more integrated example and workflow.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Totally. So I'm gonna I intro kind of context as a concept early on, and now I'm gonna take a little bit of a deeper dive into what that looks like. Um, so I'm going to start with sharing. This is a live project this is a live demo. So I have this community that I run called CrowdSolve. It's run on the platform Circle. I'm not sure if folks are familiar with it, but it's essentially a community platform. Now, for me, I really want to be able to draft posts to this community really efficiently when things happen. So what recently happened is we had a beta cohort launch yesterday. That's a cohort of founders who are going to be coming in and working with us to get mentorship and training as new startup founders. I want to draft a post in Circle that welcomes them to the beta cohort and basically says, here's what the structure is going to be, just as a reminder from yesterday. So what I want to do, this is the drafts, right? So I want to have a draft in this that says exactly what the beta cohort is going to look like. So let's see if I can get Claude Code to do that. So I'm going to go over here. This is called the terminal, right?
Wait,
This is
Patrick, before
yeah,
are
go ahead.
we I just want to make sure we're looking at the right thing. Right now we see your Google Drafts, Patrick slides, context, and
Oh,
foundation.
dang it. Okay, let me see if I can get this over here. Thanks, live demo, folks. Okay.
I was like, that does look like a draft.
Yeah, that's
So,
great.
all
He's
right,
like,
there we
maybe
go.
we're looking at the right thing. Okay, so this now everybody can see that this is my drafts in Circle that we should be all looking at. This is so what at the end state is going to be I want a draft post in here. This is how I interface with Claude Code. So this is me talking to Claude right now, and I have a prompt queued up, which is read the most recent event transcript and draft a post for the Founders Lounge about what's coming in the beta cohort over the next 10 weeks. Program structure, weekly rhythm, and what to do this week. Post it as a draft in Circle. So we'll see if I can one-shot this. Not a guarantee. Okay. So while that's going, I'm going to talk briefly about how this relates to context. Can everybody see my Finder window? This is my directory structure.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So in this directory, I have all the context that this chatbot needs to know to be able to execute on this. So first of all, I have a system file called claude.md. This is essentially what Claude is going to ingest every time it looks in this folder. And I've opened it up so that it's only looking in this one folder. Then I've got information about the client right here. I've got some documentation. I've got a log, and I've got a plan. The other folders that I think are worth noting, there's a raw folder. So that's all of my raw context. And then I've got a wiki. And the wiki just says, essentially, it's got an index that's an overview of how the project is structured. It's got all of the different, everything that's in raw, but it's been processed and condensed in a way that is really understandable to Claude so that it's not ingesting. Remember earlier how I said like they've got a finite amount of like context that they can actually understand, these LLMs. I don't want to give it everything that's in raw because it's going to overwhelm its context window and it might have trouble sorting through different dates, different times that things happened. And so I want to give it a condensed version of that, which is why I've created a wiki in here. Whether or not you understand the perfect structure that I've articulated, that's a V2. What I really want to drive home with this is that I have super intentionally structured my directory so that Claude only has access and only loads what I want it to at any given time. I have nightly workers that go through here that are LLMs that comb this and make sure that it's only surfacing the most current data so that the structure is correct. And every time I start a new session, Claude can actually understand what's happening and be able to effectively do this. So I've got about a minute left. Let's look and see how it's doing right now. Let's check in with Claude. Okay, so it's still thinking about this. and verifying the day of week for the dates and the references. I think it's going to end up here doing this. So now it's drafting the post and running it through a humanizer skill, which is basically a skill that I have. We'll go into skills a little bit more, but basically it's going to strip M dashes and anything that looks like it's AI from this. But it knows that because this skill exists in this directory structure, which is, again, the key piece that I want you to understand. Okay, so it's got the draft content. Great kickoff yesterday. 8 founders with real projects tackling real problems. From hydroelectric turbines, that's one of our cohort members, to sustainable travel. It's going to go through the humanizer again. And let's see if we can actually get a draft in here in the next 5 seconds. Okay. I think let's go on to the next. Oh, yeah, let's go on to the next segment and let's circle back at the end and see how this did in close. So I'll put you all on the hook and we'll see. I'm going to be waiting with bated breath to see if this actually worked. Nat's going to talk to you about tool use, or excuse me, Chris is going to talk to you more about MCPs and APIs for the next segment. So let's go ahead and transition to him.
Yeah, so I use Claude Code for coding, of course, but in addition to that, I'm using like the Claude ecosystem for workflows and managing my work in general. And I'll share my screen. And so I did prep some work, made sure things were connected, and then I'll show you like just like a typical usage pattern that I would use for doing this. Let me start my timer too. 1 second.
I got you, Chris.
Okay, sweet. All right, so today, keep in mind, I was showing you the list of connector options, going through what was available. There's G Drive, there's Gmail, G Calendar, Notion, etc. Some things Claude can write through, sometimes it can only read. So in this case, for G Drive, it can only read. So I want to give an example of it actually doing something. And where'd we go? Like Patrick, Natalie, and I were managing our tasks through Notion. I want to track the work that I'm doing there. Let's check out our board. We've got our board of things that we've been doing. I actually added our slides to a shared site. I forgot to put that on the board. I'm lazy. I want Claude to do it. So let's see if Claude can do that. Hey, Claude, I added slides for the context demo and also the foundational demo slides as well. Can you make 2 cards and put them in the draft section of our task management under stop prompting start shipping in my Notion space? So I'm using Whisper to do that. It's just if I'm in a phone booth or in like private area, I'll use Whisper, and also for being on a demo call, also use it just so you can hear what I'm saying and I don't need to type it out. And great. Oh my God. Thank you, Claude, for doing stuff like that. So this is where like Claude gets really powerful, is when you actually start having it interact with your tools. So this is it, like adding things to the board for me. And this is why you're seeing in the industry a lot of talk around like headless software, is just like giving Claude access to the tools that you use and letting it either write to it or read from it. So then in reverse, if Natalie, Patrick, and I have something that's ready to go, then I could say, hey, Claude, like take the information from this card and actually start executing it. So an example that I have for that could be, is another example. So I have a product out to market. It just got like 2,000 users in the past week. I was doing some analysis with Claude via a connector, actually through a CLI tool. It's Loops. Natalie's invested in it. Thank you so much, Natalie. And I found that a lot of people wanted LinkedIn CRM enrichment. It might be in our chat here, but let's say it's 30% of the people. So I'm going to say, hey, Claude, based on our analysis of finding that people want LinkedIn CRM enrichment, can you add a ticket to Linear for getting that work done? Add the context of the files that you need from the code base, put it in a Linear ticket. I'm going to check on it. Once I see that's ready to go, then let's kick off an agent to do the work. But don't do the work yet. Let's just look at the ticket. Okay, great. That got in. So here's my Linear board, and you can put it in the to-do column. So this is Claude Code. This is in the terminal. I similar concept is just through a different modality. I have it connected through CLIs and MCPs in these workspaces. And so this is the code base for that product. And linear is how I'm tracking my work. And so I can generate tickets, and I can even have Claude generate those tickets in like the format that it reads best. And then I can say, hey, Claude, take the ticket from Linear and actually start working, like actually start delivering a solution for me. So I know Natalie referred to human in the loop. I'm starting to view things as like human creating the loop or human guiding the loop. And I look at it as like the system where you have the loop, and I'm just like, okay, does Claude's right here. The output is going to be over here in GitHub or a marketing piece of content. The context will be over here, and I'm just making sure that it is connected in via MCPs or APIs or connectors and managing that system. So this is like generally how I'm working through things like that. And let's see. Oh, it actually sees an already related ticket. Let's see about that. So when it has access to your sort of context or knowledge base. Oh yeah. Uh, we do already have a ticket for this. Thanks for finding that, Claude. Like, that's so amazing. So then I could say, actually, let's just start executing on ticket 46, and it'll spin up an agent in its own environment and do that. So those are two example demos. One in the Claude desktop, which similar to web, or two in the Claude Code terminal interface.
All right, Chris, you cool if I jump in?
Go for it.
Awesome. I know we're covering a lot, so thanks y'all for bearing with as we talk your ears off. Can you see my demo skills slide real quick?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, cool. So quick background, as a new builder, I was like, what do I want to accomplish? You know, what do I want to do? I run a really lean business. We're an investment group, and there was so much operationally I wanted to up level. There were, I don't know, a million things. Let's get focused, right? You can't build everything at once. So I started building skills. I started building skills, recognizing literally across the business, there were things I wanted to work on, from comms and operations to logistics and thought partnership. So this chief of staff concept or project was what I was really kind of building on and working on, which started as skills. Then I started adding this cron, or basically automation, and some of it's turned agentic, or basically autonomous kind of loops where it's kind of self-improving. I'm going to dumb it down. I'm going to show you a very clear example of something I absolutely love that I honestly think would be helpful for every person on this call. It's a granola to Slack workflow. And if you're not using granola, or similarly a tool that basically takes a meeting like this one and pulls out and ingests all of the content from it and has a transcript, I highly recommend it. So on one hand, you may be, and I'm going to start actually sharing so that you can see my some more workflow. But basically what I want to walk you through is with granola, which I'm going to actually share just so you can see granola for a second. With granola, you can see that.
Yep.
You basically get access to these, and you can use another tool. You can also just like pull it, using Claude Code. But I'm just going to pull up my weekly deal meeting. This is something where it records on Tuesdays when I meet with my team. This is the granola overview. I used to think it was amazing. Okay. And a lot of you probably still think it's amazing. But when you actually look at the transcript behind it, and when you say, I want something that's more purpose built for what we need, you really unlock another level. So I'm actually going to show you now our Slack environment. So we have a group Slack. And within our Slack environment, I basically now have purpose built summaries that use the granola transcript. And then I've created basically these skills that say, or the context to say, this is what I want, not the granola summary, but I want a purpose built summary that says, these are the CTAs, this is the follow up. It's firing to multiple Slack channels, one being the core team channel, another one being our weekly announcements channel. You can see this channel. Did it come up?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this is, again, purpose built where it's actually getting auto ingested back into Claude. And then we're getting things like, comms and whatnot that are basically summarizing and then like creating content like our newsletter and some really, really powerful stuff. So what I'm basically trying to show you is I took a workflow that was, oh, here's just using an AI transcription tool. Yeah, the DAF newsletter, just taking a transcription tool, but then building it so that it's active. It's something where we can now engage and we don't have to ask people to like chase things. So it's really up leveled. And this is just one example. I'm literally using this chief of staff functionality with skills, with agentic, human in the loop, also fully autonomous stuff that optimizes. It's been amazing. But I think this is an example where, again, huge uplift, huge unlock in terms of the value that not just I'm seeing, but our entire team and even the organization beyond that. So there's a lot that we could talk on here about here, but I just want to, again, kind of double click on context, knowledge base. What are you building? How are you, really kind of hurting or creating the framework so that you're getting what you want from this? And so it keeps getting better. I continue to improve. Also, Claude is continuing to improve it too, because that's the nature in which I'm kind of building. So hopefully this wasn't too crazy. We're going to move on actually and now start wrapping up to talking about some closing remarks before we move to Q&A. Yes, definitely use that term. It's a fun one, Jay. But with that, Patrick, if you want to start driving us home with some of the closing remarks.
For sure. Yeah, thanks, folks. So I'm really excited to talk more in Q&A as well, but I just wanted to kind of like bring it full circle. Really what we covered today. Oh, and actually before I do this, I just want to quickly finish out my presentation and just show you what we ended up with. So it did actually go ahead and post completely to Circle. So this is the draft that it came up with. Your 10-week roadmap, what's coming in beta 1. And I'm actually really happy with this. The only thing that it didn't totally get right was I didn't want a CTA for folks because we're going to circle back on Friday with this cohort. So I'm just going to come back with this, delete it, and then I'm going to go ahead and publish. So that's my full, that's an example of a human in the loop workflow, right? I configured it with the context, asked it to do something, it posts a circle, and then now I review the draft and go ahead and publish it. Great. So that's now in there. Okay. Closing the loop on that, I wanted to just go ahead and highlight what we've talked about, which are really the core pieces. So I covered context and why that's a really foundational piece. What's critical for you all to know is that giving AI the right information really will cut down on hallucinations and is just a critical foundational step in terms of getting the more advanced topics to actually function. Chris covered MCP and API, which are essentially like the hands, if you will, the ways that Claude can go out and interact with other services. And then Natalie did this really cool demo showing how she up-leveled granola from like this basic tool where it's kind of giving this like generic summary to something that's really purpose built and custom for her team and that's like not a huge build. That's something that probably most of you would be able to get to if you really like it. So I love that as like an example of how to actually tie all of this stuff together, right? So she's got the context from granola, and then it goes into creating essentially her own chief of staff where it's this custom built summary that works really, really well for her team. And it's not a super heavy lift. It's a great example of how this can be powerful when it's simple. In fact, it's best when it's simple.
And it's automated, which is cool.
Yep, and it's completely automated, which is
And
just
y'all,
excellent.
the chief
I
of
love
staff
that.
does way more. That's
Totally.
a very simple example. Yeah.
And that is not like I 100%. And I think like, and that's great. Like I think all of us as builders could show like these insane things that we've built. But for what we want you all to take away, these are some like simple things that you all can go take away that do a lot. So I think that's a really effective route. So again, context, MCP API, and then like tying it all together with like a custom built workflow that's really fantastic. Um, I think what we want to get, and then I'm going to turn it over to Nat because she's got a few more pieces to go. I think really it's we want you to go from like prompting your AI and just talking with it as like a thought partner or like an email drafter that you then copy and paste into like actually using some of these more agentic tools. There are lots of good ones out there. We're happy to have chats with you after this to recommend things. The Claude ecosystem would be like Claude Cowork or Claude Code, but there are other ones that you can take in the OpenAI ecosystem and the Gemini. There's Manus, which is a meta tool that uses all of these different ones. So feel free to explore or ping us, and we're happy to like have those conversations with you.
Great. I'll jump in
Go
just
ahead,
with.
Nat. Yeah, please.
Sorry, I saw a pause.
No, that was perfect. And also, do we have the QR code showing right now? This is the
Oh
one other
no,
thing I wanted to get to for
we don't
us.
have
And
that
then
show.
Oh, I can
that'd be
link it to
great.
you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Great. Nat, go
So
ahead.
just a few final thoughts. Build intentionally, like you can find real ROI. We all connected, Patrick, Chris, and I, on practical builds and like just kind of brilliant stuff that was really up leveling. And yeah, you can just build, but there's so much intentionally that you can really up level. Personally, professionally, I do both. I build for both. I think it's about just starting, right? So saying, okay, well, I'm going to move from chatting to prompting. I'm going to try building a skill. I'm going to connect to some MCPs, and you can, further up level from there. I just want to quickly shout out the QR code on the screen. We would love it if you filled it out. So I'm going to keep summarizing a little bit, but we'll keep this code up, and we would love to hear what you think. Mental health, y'all, mental health. Everybody, including myself, who I've chatted with, who's geeked out on this stuff, like you can get in some mania because it's an infinite expanse of build and potential and optionality. It's really important to ground. It's really important to say, hey, what are we doing, for ourselves as humans? And we can't just build. We need rest. We need reprieve. So I just want to call that out. You can work with Claude to get better, or I guess really whatever AI tool, but Claude on the building side, it's amazing. You're literally like in beyond engineering school. If you're like, hey, Claude, how do I build this? Because guess what? I'm not writing the code. And maybe these guys, Chris and Patrick might get more technical, but I can get super technical with Claude because Claude has those skills. So use Claude to get better, right? I think I mentioned trust, and somebody actually asked about this. Building trust, stepping into agency, like recognizing your potential and capacity. These are things that take time, but these are all things that you can, figure out. And building may not be for everyone, and that's absolutely okay. But there's nothing wrong with trying and figuring out, hey, I'm going to break this. I'm going to fail. I'm going to get better. I'm going to decide when I need to work with somebody else. So the invitation really, back to the headline of the name, stop prompting and start shipping and building. So thank you again. CTA, again, if you could fill out that survey, we have up the QR code. But we'll be at Boulder Startup Week soon, and we would love to see you and hear from you. So we're going to open it up for Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Nat. What thoughts or questions do people have? We're welcome to additions. things that you've run into, um, questions that you had, something that we said that felt like ambiguous or unclear. Would love to hear from you all.
And can you drop in a link to the survey so that they can? Oh, it looks like Chris already did.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
But feel free to come off mute if y'all have questions. You've asked some
Yeah.
really good ones in the chat. Oh, somebody asked about security earlier. So privacy, security,
Great.
Chris, if you want to comment on that.
Yeah. So I had a couple of notes prepared for that. Generally, when I'm looking at like connectors or tools, things that I'm considering are, is this provided by the company, authored and provided by the company itself? Like that's highest signal trust. That gives me trust in the tool. So it's like from Google or from Linear, from Jira, etc. Then that's a good signal. Another one would be like seeing if it's not one of those brand names, but it's a connecting tool. Like big brand names would be arcade.dev, uh, Galileo, Composio, etc. And there's like a few options in that regard as well. And yeah, seeing who's authored it, where it's coming from. And then lastly, if there's not a tool available, but you're making like um a direct API token, you can make a separate one for the agent itself and like give it scoped down permissions, and that makes it easier to revoke and rotate them. And then you can
Yeah,
also have it only access, to Natalie's point, you can like partition what information it's seeing. Actually, to both Natalie's written point and Patrick's context point, is like you can separate certain files in Google Drive so it's only accessing a certain shared group. So maybe it only has access to like a subset of folders that you are comfortable with it reading.
that's great. Other questions or thoughts? Are there things that people have been like really excited about that they've built and are wondering how to take it to the next level? Yeah, would love to hear from you folks.
And for Yenny's question about accessing Facebook, something to check out using Claude Code um, is using the Playwright MCP server. If we'll look up and see what MCP servers are available for Facebook, firstly, check that out. I haven't looked that much in that ecosystem recently. If one is not available, then a workaround, which is slower and uses more tokens, but is possible, is adding a Playwright MCP. And then that's how Claude Code can actually interact with the web and see data off of that. It'll be slower and use more tokens because sometimes it'll take screenshots to assess things, but that's like a good middle ground until a more defined like API or connecting tool is available.
I would say one thing on that is be cautious. I would be a little bit cautious about the browser automation and social media tools in certain contexts because you can get banned from social media sites if they do bot detection. And these are getting to be really sophisticated where they can actually scan and see if your mouse is active on the page with various tools and all kinds of different things. So just be like cognizant of the fact that you want it to be going at human speed. You want to, start with accounts that you don't feel like are going to be really critical. Like if it's your personal account, that can be definitely a little bit damaging and they can potentially ban you for a lot of those things. So just be cautious with some of those pieces. It's an important thing to know.
If you're doing it on your own machine, and your own OAuth token, then it's a little more permissed or at least less found. If you're doing it in a headless server, like if they know it's from like an IP number from a data center with Railway or AWS, then yeah, you might get banned. But if you do it like in automation in the browser you're using, less likely. But there's nuance there.
Any more questions from folks that are on?
Laura asked, would it be possible to have it upload new course materials to Kajabi? Short answer, yes, for sure, especially with some of the browser tools like we're talking about. Um, Long answer, this is my experience with Circle a little bit, is that it can sometimes be a little bit clunky where there isn't a direct API or MCP. And I don't know Kajabi's specific situation. If they have a really robust API or MCP that they have, then it can be really, really easy to do that stuff. And it's actually like slick and makes your life way easier. When they don't have that, sometimes it makes your life easier, and sometimes you spend too much time like debugging the browser, clicking tools. So that's kind of the bit. Okay, yeah, if it doesn't have an MCP, if it has an API, very
Yeah,
simple,
the
very
next thing is
simple.
API. Check if it
Yeah,
has an API.
check if it has an API that will do that. Um, Thanks, Abby. Great.
Thank you so much. I've got to hop off. We'll be
That's
in
great.
touch.
Sounds good. I'm just looking for other questions.
Keith asked a really good one, and I just want to again speak to this concept of like
Mm.
trust. I would never advise or suggest, and I think we probably all agree on this, like don't just give a bunch of access not knowing what you're doing, right? Like make sure you have a sense and you understand and you have ownership over how am I managing this, right? What feels good? What do I trust? Again, to Chris's point, like who wrote this if I'm, using some MCP, and you can expand trust and expand, what that looks like over time. But I would just be careful, and I'd recognize we're in a brave new world, right? And so I would not lean on trust if you don't actually know what it is. And you can build trust as you build your skills.
Yeah, and to answer that also for Claude Code, I can't speak to Codex. I mean, I've used that generally, but I haven't seen this behavior recently. But I'm speaking to Claude Code. You'll, even if it's in dangerously skip permissions mode, when it starts accessing or changing its own config, which lives at the root of your computer, it'll still ask you for permission to do that. So there are guardrails around adjusting the configurations of the tool itself. So it has some meta awareness that they've baked into the rules in the model and the harness.
Great. So we have just a couple minutes left. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. Really good questions. Honestly, like I'm kind of in awe of the questions coming in because it's such different facets of this. So at least that says to me, some of you are more advanced, but we want to meet you. If things are over your head, don't be scared. You can interact with Claude. We are, of course, accessible and available for follow-up, but just by engaging, you're really building on your skills.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming in, and thanks for the engagement. This is, yeah, and just one more plug for the feedback. This is our second one. We're doing one more, at least at Boulder Startup Week. So anything that you have for us that can help us improve or something we did great, would love to hear it. And thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, keep in touch. Find us on all the channels.
And
Yeah, on all the,
Katie's asking about resources for beginners, and I think that Zoom is filtering out my crazy dog in the background. I hope it is.
it is.
Okay, great. Katie, honestly, like I think it's just getting involved and it's asking questions. And again, you can ask people, you can ask Claude. It's just trying. It's showing up to things like this. But at the end of the day, like we're gonna send a recording of this too. Like you can always watch something back. You can dig into concepts again yourself in a group with folks like us. But top of mind resources for beginners. Honestly, there's a lot of, I'd say, not great workshops I've seen out there. I think part of the reason that Chris, Patrick, and I do this and we started talking about this was we saw a lot of theoretical things where it was people that were teaching that hadn't actually built themselves. And that's what's different. That's what's unique, I think, about the three of us. We're really building, we're really learning, and we're excited to share that. So I would just steer clear from people where they haven't actually built themselves. I'd probably be careful about just paying for something with a hefty price tag, thinking that that's going to be value. Look at the context, right? It's all a metaphor.
Yeah.
But hopefully this is helpful.
And just
No, thank you so much.
Claude.ai, the web interface, go to that prompt box and just say, hey, here's how I'm thinking about using you. I'm new to this. Like, what are the best ways to use this tool?
Okay.
In its system prompt, it has a description of its tool and its ecosystem itself. Sometimes it's off, but generally it knows like, oh, well, you can do this, you can do this, and you can just ask it to help like guide you into things.
That's great. Katie, you were about to jump in and say one more thing.
Sorry, did you say me, Dave?
Yeah, yeah. I just
Yeah, no,
realized
I
you
was just gonna
unmuted.
say, yeah, I was just gonna say there's so much noise in this space. So this is the first time I've actually like shown up for anything, not really knowing. And so yeah, thank you for having kind of a more curated, trustworthy, like I trust Natalie, so therefore I trust you guys. And so just like it's the association, those direct associations that makes this all feel a lot less icky than it could otherwise feel. So thank you.
For sure. Oh, thanks, Katie.
I
That's
will
so
be
nice.
hopping off, but there are great communities in the Front Range. I don't know where you are, but there's Boulder AI Builders, ID 345 in Denver,
Okay,
um,
Denver,
Rocky
yep.
Mountain
Denver's
AI
where I'm at.
Interest Group.
Okay,
I just
awesome.
I just
Yeah.
want to say on the over like inundation of things and data and everything, I actually pull back from a lot of things because like for me, Katie, to your point, like curation, trust, and also finite energy and time. Like I know Chris
Mhm.
loves, one of the AI vibes chats, and I'm kind of just quiet and kind of ignoring it because it was too much for me. And so figuring out
Yeah.
our learning path from a mental health and also just like the standpoint of where we are and where we want to be met. I think all of that, knowing the resources, but not just trying to consume everything is probably the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that final point. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Thanks,
All right, you guys
everybody.
have a
Bye,
great day.
Chris. Thanks,
I'm gonna be
dude.
hopping off.
Bye.
See you.
Bye, y'all.
Great.